like to call this meeting of the Clay County Commission to order. Before we get started, I'd like to do just a couple of housekeeping things. We are, of course, live streaming this as we have been recently on our meetings. I was going to give the contact information for getting onto that, but on the other hand, if you're watching us right now, you already know how to get there. So, but for those who would like to either watch the live stream or go back and look at our archives, if you go to claycountymo.gov, you should be able to navigate some links and be able to do that. We are also open to public here today, within obviously the COVID-19 protocol limitations. So the public is certainly welcome. We have a podium over there when people come up to comment. We would like to make sure that everybody makes sure that the light is green on their microphone, that they identify themselves, and particularly with masks, try to speak as clearly as possible, identifying yourself and speaking as clearly as possible. And I think that kind of covers a lot of it. The only other thing is, as we go through, we'll be doing a number of votes today. For the most part, I will not be voting because under our Constitution, the presiding commissioner only votes under specific circumstances. Chief among those is a tie vote, so just so you understand the procedure and how we are progressing on this. With that, Mr. Administrator, if you would please lead us in an invocation.
Pray with me. Father, we ask your presence today as we gather to deliberate. We ask, Father, for humility, compassion, and wisdom as we go through the business of the county. Be with us as we gather. We ask this in Jesus' blessed name. Amen.
Please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Please call the roll.
Here.
Oh, your mic is not on. There you go.
Commissioner Carpenter.
Here.
Commissioner Thompson.
Here.
And Commissioner Nolte.
Here. That brings us to approval of the agenda. Is there a motion for the approval of the agenda as published?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as published.
Motion has been made for approval of the agenda as published. Discussion, are there any additions, deletions, or any other alterations to the agenda as published? Commissioner Carpenter, do you have anything?
I do not.
Very well. Commissioner Thompson, it's yours to close.
Close.
Please call the roll.
Commissioner Thompson.
Yes.
Commissioner Carpenter.
Yes.
That brings us to meeting schedules. The next meeting will be sometime next week. That is yet to be determined, and that will be published as we settle our schedule for next week. Honorary resolutions, there are none. Public hearings, there are none listed. That brings us to commission session. We have one item, which is the 2021 budget. Before we get started, I would like to say we have something on the order of 35 budget decision items that we have to take up. That will take us obviously some time, so somewhere around the middle when we have a natural point to break, we will go ahead and stand at ease for 10 minutes or so to allow everybody to stretch and do what they need to do to be able to continue on. The other part of that is, since we have so many items, if I have the okay of the other two commissioners, in the interest of making it go a little bit more quickly, is I would like to go ahead and just make the motions on each one, run them through, and then have each commissioner obviously have the ability to make comments as they see fit. But I think that would get through the procedural part of it more quickly and allow more time for discussion and comment. That I don't anticipate doing that at any other time, but the agenda is rather lengthy. With that, I would like to recognize Steve Sirks, the head of our budget team, so he can let us know who's been working on budget and give us some background before we start.
Thank you, Commissioner. Steve Sirks, budget consultant to the Commission. We started this process approximately January 4th, and in some cases a little before this. When we started the process, we were already kind of in the hole as far as many funds being in the red and a deficit. So we face a significant challenge. In totality, we were about, as you see on the area up there, it says 2021 Clay County total budget, we were $2.7 million in the red in totality when we started this process. Since that time, myself and the budget team, consisting of Bob Nance, the county treasurer, Victor Hurlbert, the Clay County auditor, Kathy Minton from the finance department, and Benjamin Pedersen, the chief deputy auditor for the auditor's office, have been working diligently to try to come up with a fair and balanced budget for Clay County. And I think that we have achieved that. All those that are showing in red have now been fixed, and they will show in green. So we have come up with a balanced budget that we feel is a fair budget. We have been very inclusive and have met with almost all the office holders and department heads, and everyone has been very, very helpful and engaging in coming up with this proposed budget. So I'd just like to say thanks to all the budget team for all their help and hard work in putting this together and getting us to the form that we could present to the commission with the budget team's recommendations. So having said that, we appreciate your attention to this, and I'm sure that you will give it your due diligence and approve as appropriate. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The commission certainly appreciates the hard work of the budget team and the fact that you're here to help make sure that any questions that arise are answered. I also want to welcome Mr. Tom Salisbury, who is our new county administrator. He's kind of coming on board. This is his first full day, although he's been working around the building for some time now. But now we officially own you. So with that, we will go ahead and move forward on the proposed budget. We'll be taking each decision item up individually. So with that, I make a motion for the approval of budget adjustment item number 1. Mr. Administrator?
Commissioners, budget adjustment item number 1 pertains to CARES Act reappropriation for grant reimbursements to the Sheriff's Law Enforcement Tax Fund. Budget team?
Yes, Mr. Administrator. Number 1, Commission, is a recommended adjustment to use the county's portion of remaining CARES Act funds totaling around $1 million to reimburse Sheriff's Department for eligible costs under the Act. We have about $150,000 left from December of last year, and payroll, all law enforcement payroll under the Act is eligible for reimbursement. That reimbursement, $750,000, $750,000, will then be used as cash that can be used for law enforcement budget. And this is a portion of the restructuring goal of the Sheriff's Office and the Commission direction to bring up deputy pay to make the law enforcement and Sheriff's Office more competitive in the region. So we will address another $250,000 to that same goal later on as we get down the line, but that's what number 1 is for.
Thank you very much. Discussion? Commissioner Carpenter?
Thank you. So obviously support doing this. I've always been an advocate for capturing every available federal dollar, and that's certainly true with the CARES Act. And I think directing it toward eligible law enforcement expenses makes a lot of sense. I just want to confirm our confidence level that is 100% that this is an eligible expense and that we're not doing anything that will put us in violation of the CARES Act.
Yes, Commissioners, Clay County Auditor Victor Hurlbert. This is directly from the U.S. Treasury Department's guidance that all law enforcement personnel is considered eligible, and it doesn't have to be specifically dedicated to COVID. And in fact, we have seen a lot of our city partners who we gave most of our CARES Act funds to. We originally got around some $30 million, and county only kept $1.5 million. And they are reimbursing a lot of general law enforcement costs for their city police departments. So yes, we are confident.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Commissioner Thompson?
Yes, Commissioner. I just want to say, I really appreciate the budget team being able to find the money and moving some of this around for our sheriff's department. It's been a huge priority of mine to make sure that we do have you guys properly funded moving forward. That's all I have to say on that.
Thank you very much. Further discussion? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Commissioner Carpenter?
Yes.
Commissioner Thompson?
Yes.
The motion passes. I'd like to make a motion for the adoption of a budget adjustment item number 2. Mr. Administrator?
Commissioners, this pertains to Commissioners, this pertains to the Sheriff's Department Law Enforcement Cash Carryover True-Up. Budget team?
Yes, Victor Hurlbert, Clay County Auditor again. This is essentially just a carryover true-up. Essentially, the Law Enforcement Fund 279 came in a little under what was anticipated for cash carryover. The primary reason for that was the 27th payroll. So what this does is balances that specific shortfall. You can see the net impact as we go through, highlighted in blue to the general fund of $342,000. And we will identify the cuts elsewhere of where recommended cuts and adjustments to be able to fund that, but just so you know going forward.
Thank you. Discussion? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Commissioner Carpenter?
Yes.
Commissioner Thompson?
Yes.
The motion passes. Make a motion for the adoption of budget adjustment item number 3. Mr. Administrator?
Commissioners, this pertains to the sheriff's contractual and commodities issues.
Victor Hurlbert again. This is essentially from what we heard with the budget meeting with the sheriff's office, and as we have learned from last year, a large portion of this $500,000 is to fund sheriff inmates in the detention center, healthcare, and food. So that has to be funded contractually. The other items for ammunition and to be used by a sheriff's office discretion, Keystone software, et cetera. So this is to get them to that request.
Thank you very much. Discussion? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Commissioner Carpenter?
Yes.
Commissioner Thompson?
Yes.
The motion passes. Make a motion for the adoption of budget adjustment item number 4. Mr. Administrator?
Commissioners, budget adjustment item number 4 pertains to Sheriff's Department new positions. Budget team?
Yes. This, but number 4 identifies 7 new positions that would be added to the Sheriff's Department. You have 2 transport positions in the detention division, 2 patrol division deputies, and, I'm sorry, make that 3 each transport positions, and then patrol division deputies, and 1 administrative assistant. And that is a total cost of about $425,000 from the general fund identified from adjustments elsewhere.
Discussion?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So just to speak in favor, I think it's been pretty clear to folks who've paid attention to how the county has been funding the sheriff's department in recent years that that we've fallen behind, and probably intentionally so. And I think making these monies available to bring the necessary folks on board to staff the department makes a lot of sense, and I'll be voted in favor.
Thank you. Commissioner Thompson?
I agree. I think everyone knows how I feel about our sheriff's department and keeping our men and women in law enforcement safe. And I think these new positions are definitely needed.
Thank you. For my part, one of the things that's been on my radar for some time is the transportation deputies. That is something that I think is underestimated, the amount of danger and hazard that these men and women are under when they are doing transport. I don't think you have to look too far in the news to realize just how dangerous it is, and I'm very happy that we are able to mitigate that danger by at least moving in the right direction towards adequately staffing the sheriff's office, but this in particular. Further discussion? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Commissioner Carpenter?
Yes.
Commissioner Thompson?
Yes.
Make a motion to adopt budget adjustment item number 5. Mr. Administrator?
Commissioners, budget adjustment item number 5 pertains to the Sheriff's Department additional salaries as they restructure. Budget team?
Yes, this is the other $250,000 we suggested bringing the total restructure to $1 million. and this is from the general fund component.
Thank you. Discussion? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Commissioner Carpenter?
Yes.
Commissioner Thompson?
Yes?
Thank you. That brings us to budget adjustment item number 6. Mr. Administrator?
Commissioners, budget adjustment item number 6 pertains to the Sheriff's Department personnel consolidation from Departments 553, 554, and 555 into Department 556. Budget team?
Thank you. Yes, this is a request from numerous departments, Sheriff's Office, Auditor and Processing Payroll, payroll itself, HR, a way for us to have a better tracking and budgeting of Sheriff's Office payroll. Currently, they're in numerous departments from Community Services, Patrol, Detention, and then 557 Emergency Management. 556 is the admin department, and so the proposal here is to consolidate most sheriff personnel costs into 556, and this will help us specifically with the overtime conundrum we've had in years past where departments can run short. And so this will move most of that payroll. We have, I will note, left those grant departments alone as far as the payroll costs. That way they can be seen as restricted and not commingled anywhere. So this is a zero net impact to the budget. It just helps us to consolidate, track better budget.
Thank you very much. Discussion? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Commissioner Carpenter?
Yes.
Commissioner Thompson?
Yes?
Make a motion for the adoption of budget adjustment item number 7. Mr. Administrator.
Commissioners, budget adjustment item number 7 pertains to the Law Enforcement Training Fund revenue correction. Budget team.
Thank you. Yes, in years past, this has been budgeted, the revenue for the Law Enforcement Training Fund. It was not in the proposed budget, so this adjustment puts it in the adopted budget if approved by the commission, as well as the expenditure for law enforcement training.
Thank you. Discussion. This is for post-training, which is obviously a requirement for the sheriff's deputies to be compliant with, so this is clearly necessary for us to approve this. Very
Yes.
good. Further discussion? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Commissioner Carpenter?
Yes.
Commissioner Thompson?
Yes?
Make a motion for the adoption of budget adjustment item number 8. Mr. Administrator.
Commissioners, budget adjustment item number 8 pertains to Fund 508 adjustments for changes in accounting treatment. Budget team.
Thank you. This is a recommendation from our outside auditor and how we treat this fund as discretionary to the sheriff, the inmate commissary fund. It is a neutral, budget neutral effect to the county. It's just a better way to recognize the revenues and expenditures than how we are currently doing.
Thank you. Discussion? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Commissioner Carpenter?
Yes.
Commissioner Thompson?
Yes?
That brings us to budget adjustment item number 7. Move to approve. Mr. Administrator.
I think I'm going to go to, think
I'm
we're
sorry,
on
I meant
number
9. Yes, please. Thank you.
I shall read number 9. Commissioners, budget adjustment item number 9 pertains to an MU Extension Department request.
Yes, this is, as we heard from the budget meeting with the University of Missouri Extension Service at the Annex, they requested only $3,275 more than what was proposed. So given commission direction, we went ahead and funded that.
Thank you. Discussion? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Commissioner Carpenter?
Yes.
Commissioner Thompson?
Yes?
The motion passes. Make a motion for the adoption of budget adjustment item number 10. Mr. Administrator.
Commissioners, budget adjustment item number 10 pertains to the 2020 correction for the collector and public administrator retroactively. Budget team.
Yes, number 10, 2020 was a unique year. Not sure if it's ever happened before in a county where a 2% COLA was granted. However, departments had to come up with that funding out of their own budgets. The departments listed here with the collector and public administrator for different reasons were not able to do so. So what this budget does is allow them to be brought up to where the rest of the county employees are.
Thank you. Discussion.
Yep.
Commissioner Carpenter, please proceed.
Thank you, Commissioner. So I do support doing this. My understanding is that when we do these COLA raises, that they're supposed to be applied across the board. I think the previous administration made frankly a mistake by doing it the way they did. I think this allows us to rectify that and create some equality in these COLA raises, make sure everybody gets them fairly. So I'll be voting yes.
Okay, further discussion? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Commissioner Carpenter?
Yes.
Commissioner Thompson?
Yes?
Thank you. Make a motion to adopt budget adjustment item number 11. Mr. Administrator?
Commissioners, budget item, adjustment item number 11 pertains to a county clerk staff person not being paid for hours worked. Budget team?
Yes, in 2019, there was a need for Board of Equalization work in the summer, and there was an existing deputy clerk, and with the budget available, worked those hours, but unfortunately was not paid. So what this recommended adjustment does is essentially paid what that individual is due.
Thank you. Discussion? Please proceed, Commissioner Thompson.
Thank you, Commissioner. This item is very near and dear to my heart, and I'm very glad to see this in the 21 budget. This employee deserves to be compensated for the hours that she has worked. When a woman puts in the hours and does the hard work for the county, she should be paid. So I'm very glad to be voting yes on this.
Hear, hear. With that, if there's no further discussion, please call the roll.
Commissioner Carpenter?
Yes.
Commissioner Thompson?
Yes.
Thank you. This brings us motion to approve budget item, adjustment item number 12. Mr. Administrator.
Commissioners, budget item adjustment number 12 pertains to an auditor's office personnel adjustments. Budget team?
Yes, this is my own office, Clay County Auditor, and essentially what we have here is I put in a request to fully staff my personnel, and it was not proposed. And so this would allow those individuals to be paid. I am not only fully funding my chief deputy, which I had resigned in 2020, so I was essentially not resign, retire, working with only 3 part-time and no full-time employees. So it fully funds my chief deputy. It also pays for moving a part-time employee who is willing to go full-time. And this is also a important piece because the reason, a big reason was that the part-time healthcare premiums currently almost exceed or are about the equivalent of a part-time salary. So moving her to full-time, it will be able to reduce that healthcare cost. So that's the recommendation here.
Thank you very much. If you have a comment, please head up to Mike. While we are waiting.
Taking comments now.
Excuse me?
Are you taking comments?
We're trying not to take too many, but yeah, if you've got something to add, go ahead. While we're doing that, though, let me go ahead and get the commissioner comments, and then we will go to yourself. Is there any comment or discussion on the part of the commission? No? No? Please proceed. Oh, identify yourself as well, please.
Kathy Reinhardt, Clay County Assessor. I would like to address the commission to ask Mr. Hurlbert if this is enough for his office, because I personally don't think it is. I don't think he's got enough staff, and I think now's the time to address that, because several years ago, we had 4 full-time employees in the auditor's department, and they audited every office. I personally don't think the man's got enough staff. I don't think 2 full-time employees and 2 part-time employees, or I don't know what you have, Mr. Hurlbert, and I'm not addressing this to you, I'm addressing this to the commission. I think if we're gonna fix it, by God, let's fix it. So if he needs 4 full-time employees to actually do what needs to be done as an auditor, to make sure that we're not overspending, to make sure that we're not doing things that we shouldn't be doing, which is what the auditor's supposed to do, I don't think there's enough staff here. That's all I'm saying.
By the way, thank you for addressing that to the commission, because that is the proper procedure. And then I will recognize the auditor, Mr. Hurlbert, if he would like to make comment on that.
Certainly. No, I appreciate the comments, Assessor Reinhardt. And, one thing I did here is I essentially asked for my existing staff. I have now 2 full-time and 1 part-time. My accounts payable deputy, who is a CMA, very qualified individual. I think one thing that we've discussed before with the commission, we're going to get to a little later on, is the finance department, which is kind of a variable question out there, and I look forward to future discussions with the administrator, with the commission on that note. But I think a lot of personnel and duties in that department have been historic auditor duties, such as the outside audit, such as TIF, such as assisting with the budget, which we recognize as a commission administrator role. So I think, and we address finance on number 16, just not too far below. We left those individuals funded. Now, as far as if they are reassigned at a later time, or however the commission wants to deal with that now, I'm certainly open to willing to manage and work with those folks. Immediately at the new year, we had a sit-down meeting. We said, we're going to talk. There's not going to be any more roadblocks. We're going to be on the same page, same goal, and we're already doing that as far as the outside audit goes and a number of other items. So I'm certainly open to that as far as managing those personnel, but that's where we are. I just didn't feel, since it's such an administrative commission department, I didn't feel comfortable proposing that until told so, but yeah.
Well, leave it to me to be gutsy here. The finance department that was created. and
Could
I
you
know
speak a
I'm
little bit more into the microphone?
The finance department that was created put an extra layer of bureaucracy, took more time, more effort, more energy to try to get something through another department. And I'm not trying to eliminate anybody's jobs. That is not my duty. However, I don't think, and statutorily, there's no such thing as a finance department. That's what the auditor's supposed to do. And if that means we need 12 people in the auditor's department to do all those duties, then by God, that's where it needs to be. It shouldn't be under the commission to tell, all they were roadblocks. I mean, when we tried to get something paid, we couldn't get it paid because it was held up in the finance department. Now, I'm not saying that that's going to happen now, but why do we add an extra layer of bureaucracy that we don't need? If you want transparency, take those people and disperse them among the county where they can be used. And I don't think it's their own little department. I really don't. I think when we went to that, instead of it taking 2 days to get a check through, it took 3 weeks. And it was always held up in the finance department. So we've got an auditor, we've got an auditing department, we've got rules and regulations that tell us what we need with an auditing department. We don't have anything that tells us what we need with the finance department. Nothing. So that's just my opinion.
I just want to say that we certainly are very grateful for the efforts that the Auditor's Department has put forth, not just in the normal course of his duties, but risen to the challenges of working on budget. And he has taken on extra duties, and that is something that we are currently in discussions about as far as how we will work together. The great thing that I think we're seeing is the ability for us now as a commission to have those free and open conversations with different elected officials and departments to identify what their needs truly are and to address them. As far as streamlining and more efficiencies, I think we have every confidence that Administrator Salisbury will be bringing his expertise to this matter and identifying those streamlined moments, and he is also someone who is intricately involved in our discussions with elected officials and to make sure that we are adequately supplying their needs. So we appreciate the comments, and we certainly appreciate both the administrator and the auditor, and we have every confidence that they will step up to the challenge and right-size departments as they identify them. Further discussion from the commission? Commissioner Carpenter.
So I just want to say, I support the increase proposed in number 12 here. And I agree with the sentiment that we ought to return these duties to the auditor's office. I think obviously we've got a new county administrator who officially is on day one here. I think there's going to have to be a bit of a transition period, but I think we can make it happen and that we should. The finance department didn't even exist before 2015. It had never existed in the history of the county. And all of a sudden, not only were some of the duties pulled from the auditor's office, which I have an issue with, but also all of a sudden we had a new $1 million department. In fact, I think in a couple of the years since 2015, it's been over $1 million. So I have some question as to how, starting in 2015, all of a sudden there was $1 million worth of work that didn't used to exist at all, right? There was no finance department. And so clearly there are ways that we can better spend that money, I think. And I think it makes sense to do it through the auditor's office. Obviously, as was mentioned in number 16, we do have some salary reductions in terms of unfilled positions that had been budgeted for in the finance department. And so that is in my view, a first step. I do think long-term it makes sense to return to how things were before 2015 when that department and the $1 million budget was created, and look forward to working with our new administrator and with the auditor to make that happen.
Go ahead.
Commissioner Thompson? Go ahead, and then I'll recognize the administrator.
Yeah, sorry, I was just going to say I completely agree, and I have full confidence that our county administrator is going to work with the restructuring and cleaning up unnecessary waste in our county, so.
Mr. Administrator?
Just a comment. Appreciate everybody's comments about the circumstances that we're dealing with. I would remind everybody, just as a matter of comfort, that it's January the 21st. We are already in the middle of a deep dive on these particular issues. I've already had conversations with a number of department heads, and I plan to continue to do that. And we're going to try very hard to identify the ways that we can use our available dollars and our available resources in a way that's much more reflective of the stewardship that this county deserves. So that's our intent. That's the direction we're moving. I think we're already making good progress, and we'll be able to report additional progress in the days to come.
Thank you very much. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Commissioner Carpenter?
Yes.
Commissioner Thompson?
Yes?
Thank you. Make a motion for the adoption of budget adjustment item number 13. Mr. Administrator.
Commissioners, budget adjustment item number 13 pertains to the budget for the county councilor's department.
Yes, number 13 is for the county councilor's department, historically where the county councilor has been budgeted. In previous administration years past, we have had outside counsel paid by the hour in a different line. That wasn't very transparent, so this returns to historic practice, funds the counselor as well as has some non-personnel costs if needed.
Thank you. Discussion. This is something that we I think, are able to realize a lot of savings from as far as our county budget. If we, and we have, in fact, restructured a lot of our, how we approach having legal counsel closer to what we had done previously. I think it wasn't broken. There's no need to fix it those years ago. So with that, further discussion? Anything? Okay. With that, please call the roll.
Commissioner Carpenter?
Yes.
Commissioner Thompson?
Yes?
Thank you. That brings us to the next budget item. Make a motion to approve budget adjustment item number 14. Mr. Administrator.
Commissioners, budget adjustment item number 14 pertains to the county administration true-up. Budget team?
Yes, this is to fund the county administrator position and another employee in there, as well as budget for a potential search for commission to utilize in the future.
Thank you. Discussion? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Commissioner Carpenter?
Yes.
Commissioner Thompson?
Yes?
Thank you. Make a motion for the approval of budget adjustment item number 15. Mr. Administrator.
Commissioners, budget adjustment item number 15 pertains to HR, human resources adjustments. Budget team?
Yes, number 15, this is the actual account line where some of the outside legal was paid in previous years. the proposed budget cut it quite a bit already. We are recommending to cut it further. Some of those dollars can be used to increase the economic development Clay County budget to $100,000.
Thank you very much. Discussion, Commissioner Carpenter.
Thank you. So to clarify, we're doing 100,000 to the EDC.
Yes, that would be its new budget, $100,000.
And that was the level at which the county had historically funded the EDC until about 2015 as well, is that right?
And it had actually been,
Is it a little longer than that now?
well, it had actually been a little higher, I'd say, historically. But last year was only 44,000 some dollars. But this was the request we heard from the director yesterday was a specific ask for another money for that study. And with commission direction, that's where we put it.
Very good, thank you.
Further discussion? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Commissioner Carpenter?
Yes.
Commissioner Thompson?
Yes?
That brings us to move for the approval of budget adjustment item number 16. Please proceed, Mr. Administrator.
Commissioners, budget adjustment item number 16 pertains to Finance Department adjustments. Budget team?
Yeah, so this is about the finance department, and as previously referenced, it reduces some vacant payroll positions. We move one position to the budget to the clerk's office for one of those full-time positions, which we'll address later. And so that realizes savings to the county, as well as some unneeded non-personnel costs. There are some things funded in finance, such as the outside audit costs, but there seemed to be some budget fluff for legal matters pertaining to the state audit, so that was reduced. So net savings of $150,000 to the county.
Thank you. Discussion? Seeing none, please call the... Excuse me?
Yeah, could I?
Oh, you do have comment?
Yes, please.
Please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Commissioner. So, a question for the budget team. After making these changes, the total finance department funding, do we have the number on that?
Well, we would need to, can you pull that up, Mr. Pedersen?
Because I do support the changes that are proposed here, and as I mentioned before, look, there's going to have to be a transition period. We've got a whole team of people there doing that work, and there's ongoing work that's being done. But I do continue to have some concerns over, how we ended up with a new, fairly costly department that never used to exist. So is that the?
Looks like $644,000 would be the new, and I will
Okay.
just note that, $100,000 of that's going to be your outside audit
Right.
contract. And there is a over $300,000 copier lease for the general fund departments through RICO, and that can be evaluated how that's spent. And then another component of that is, and I think we notated that on the side to the right, of around $62,000, the lease for the building. And I know that's an issue that new administration wants to certainly consider as far as where we go with that.
Okay. No, I appreciate that. I think this, being at 644, obviously, like I said, is a step in the right direction. I think saving 150,000 here makes a lot of sense. And I do think there will need to be ongoing discussions between the commissioners, with our new administrator, and with the budget team going forward about ultimately what do we do with the finance department, which of their duties need to be redirected elsewhere, and then ultimately, do we still have a finance department? Like I said, there are folks currently working there, and there's ongoing work that needs to be done. We've got the outside audit as part of this cost. So I understand that it can't happen immediately, and that there needs to be a transition. And this is a step in the right direction. Look, this is a department that has had a couple of years that they were at $1 million, and as I mentioned, not to belabor the point, but it's a department that didn't even exist before 2015, and yet is presumably doing work that was and, you know, that is needed today and that was needed before 2015. So it's just going to be an ongoing project in terms of how to fully deal with this, and look forward to being a part of that.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Commissioner Carpenter?
Yes.
Commissioner Thompson?
Yes?
Thank you. The motion passes. That brings us to a motion for the approval of budget adjustment item number 17. Please proceed, Mr. Administrator.
Commissioners, budget adjustment item number 17 pertains to IT department adjustments. Budget team?
Yes, as Budget Consultant Cirques referenced at the beginning of the meeting, this is the area where we're going to get to where we worked with departments, where we identified some adjustments to help the county balance its budget and support our law enforcement. And this was one of those major items in IT. We actually worked with the IT current interim director to identify areas where we could make this $600,000 adjustment. And those areas were identified, as well as some vacant personnel dollars. And so we are glad to have that cooperation. This really reflects what was spent in previous years. So really this is kind of the margin or fluff, so to speak, in the budget. And this budget has grown historically over the past decade. And so this essentially right sizes the department.
Thank you. Discussion? Okay, Commissioner
Commissioner,
Carpenter.
if I could, yeah. Commissioner, could I?
I'm sorry, did you have a?
Yes, please. Thank you.
Please proceed.
Thank you, Commissioner. So just to clarify, you did, you know, I know there's been a lot of discussions here and there's a lot of savings in these items. And I think absolutely the savings need to be realized. Look, this was a department where we had a 50% increase in the budget of this department just in a 3-year period. Obviously, that's totally unsustainable. We can't have 50% increases over 3-year periods. And so, you know, some right sizing clearly needs to happen. But in terms of the specifics, I know there was discussions with the IT folks. And, you know, we talked with them when they came here before as well. Are we confident that we ended up in a place where these reductions aren't going to put at risk any of our county IT infrastructure?
We are. I'd say we met like a budget team with the IT manager, and he actually brought forth a lot of these areas, and we came to a good agreement on that. I think we all agree that IT is a priority, just given the state of technology world that we live in today, and I know in the future we're going to look to not make these types of adjustments every year, but you know, this is an area he felt comfortable of meeting their hard costs that they can't get out of. The rest are more nice to have things.
Okay. Thank you.
Further discussion?
Are we hiring?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, yes, please identify yourself.
Kathy Reinhardt, are we hiring a programmer for the IT department?
Budget team?
That funding for the IT programmer that you asked for is contained in your budget.
I understand that. Is the county going to hire somebody for programming? Because, I mean, my department's not the only one that needs a programmer.
I believe that's the decision that the county IT director and the county administrator will have to make. We're really not dealing with that as a budget team.
Okay.
Thank you. Further discussion? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Commissioner Carpenter?
Yes.
Commissioner Thompson?
Yes?
Thank you. Motion passes. Make a motion for the adoption of budget adjustment item number 18. Mr. Administrator?
Commissioners, budget adjustment item number 18 pertains to moving a P card, purchasing card reserve to rainy day fund number 511. Budget team?
Yes, I'm really excited about this item. Working with the P-Card administrator and auditor's office, we were able to take what had been a outstanding card limit threshold of all county credit cards of around $1 million, and have, because of resigned employees and other changes, we had that down to $350,000, and those savings can be used for the county. And we want to transparently show where that reserve is encumbered with its own account line. Previously, a portion of it had been in a benefits and insurance line labeled as a generic contingency reserve. And so we want to show exactly where this is.
Thank you very much. Discussion? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Commissioner Carpenter?
Yes.
Commissioner Thompson?
Yes.
Motion passes. Make a motion for the approval of budget adjustment item number 19, Mr. Administrator.
Commissioners, budget adjustment item number 19 is for Public Service Department adjustments. Budget team?
Yes, following commission direction for number 19 with public services, we are recommending a lot of adjustments for just attrition in the personnel category as well as vacant positions. But we have left funding there for those who are currently employed or moved that budget to different departments to be utilized by the county. For the non-personnel items, in that 201, for instance, you had a lot of your more controversial issues of sunshine requests, lawyer fees, public relation firms, advertising, lobbying contracts, and so that was reduced quite substantially. We only left enough to pay for a temp personnel from that firm. So that's essentially what happened with the savings there. Ultimately, $500,000 back to the county. I will note also that we moved the duty of indigent burial away from this department back to the public administrator after discussions with the public administrator, Sarah Mills, as well as the attorney in that department to go with the public administrator as well.
Thank you very much. Discussion? I have for some time been pulling for the idea that we don't need a lobbying firm, much less two. So I'm certainly gratified to see that money being put to better uses. The second thing that jumps out at me on this list is the sunshine request fulfillment that the county is responsible for doing. What we did just recently in moving those duties back into the appropriate line under the county clerk's office, I think is a way to save substantial money. So I think this, among those other moves, is a way to really be able to put those resources where they will do the most good for our citizens. Further discussion? Very well, please call the roll.
Commissioner Carpenter?
Yes.
Commissioner Thompson?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes. A motion to approve budget adjustment item number 20. Mr. Administrator.
Commissioners, budget adjustment item number 20 pertains to tourism adjustments. Budget team?
Yes, this is along the lines of number 19 with public service in tourism number 20. There was a vacant position in the personnel 100s. In the non-personnel items, we reduced a lot of the advertising dollars and other expenses that the budget had grown over the years or had not been used. So ultimate savings of around $470,000 to the county.
Discussion. Commissioner Carpenter?
Thank you. So the advertising dollars, do we have a sense of where we've been spending those dollars? You know, I've heard anecdotal places where we've been spending it, and some of it's gotten some attention. But I'm just curious, obviously new to the commission, what the goal was with spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on advertising and where we were spending that money?
Okay.
Budget team, do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, I'll just, I can't really speak for the, former administration, and that goal, my reasonable guess would be it was to drive more visitors to parks, to increase, revenues in that way. And, but I would say we had numerous agencies we were working with on contract, and we were talking, internet advertising, newspaper advertising, radio, television, you name it. And so that's basically it in a nutshell.
And pretty exclusively for parks or
Yeah.
or beyond that?
I don't know the specifics too much on that. I think a lot of it was parks, but it could have been, I mean, there was a Visit Clay site, which just
Right.
talks up all Clay County. There was a small, very small component that was a cooperative
And
arrangement.
thank you. And what happens to the Visit Clay County site with this change?
Well, we left some token dollars in the department to be able to fund some of those items, as well as IT had assisted where needed. But that's why we, as opposed to eliminating both of these departments, we left some small amount of funds.
Yeah. And then last question, did we ever have any metrics from them regarding whether it's the Visit Clay County website? I was always curious, do people go to this website? Does it work? Did we ever have any sense of metrics about results from this money?
To my knowledge, I don't know if a study has been done per se. I'm sure presentations, if, one of those agencies would probably be willing to give a presentation and, for their own purposes.
Right.
But, yeah, that's
Okay.
all I'm saying.
Thanks.
Yeah, I share Commissioner Carpenter's concern. I've always had some question about return on investment. We're investing county money. Is that coming back to us? I remain skeptical that it came back in sufficient numbers to justify the spending. We have a comment to be made? Please proceed.
Mr. Carpenter, if I may, Mr.
Please, go right ahead.
Schulte, the lady sitting right next to you there could pretty much tell you where every penny, nickel, and dime was spent. I'm sure she's more than willing to spend some time with you. I can tell you, when this all started, I was screaming, where's our return on our money? Are we getting more people going to the Parks Department? Is there any kind of audit going on with the Parks Department? Is there just cash going through there? And part of the reason I was asking about a programmer for the county is because if you had a programmer that could write the program instead of spending $350,000 for a package that didn't work for Clay County, you might have an idea of, if you spent $50,000, did you get $75,000 worth of people coming through your parks? And we never had that. And we have never had that. So all this tourism money got spent, and nobody has a clue what the return is. Just FYI. So, if you're going to spend money on advertisement, I'd suggest somebody have a grasp on, is it worth it?
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Thank you.
Talk to Sandy, she'll tell you.
All right.
Further discussion? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Commissioner Thompson?
Yes?
Commissioner Carpenter?
Yes.
Motion passes. Make a motion for the approval of budget adjustment item number 21. Mr. Administrator.
Commissioners, budget adjustment item number 21 pertains to sales tax revenue allocation to parks from the general fund. Budget team?
Yeah, so in the Parks Fund, we had because this is outside the general fund, we did have a cash carryover deficit, so that needed to be resolved, and that was a big part of the recommended adjustments here, was to reduce the general fund sales tax allocation, as well as cut expenditures to be able to accomplish that, as well as accomplish the overall objectives of the county. And so we worked directly with the interim parks manager, Mr. Davis, and we identified areas where they could still operate as needed, looking at historical expenditures, where were items spent, as well as budget changes over the years. One interesting scenario, though, with the Parks Fund is they have a component use tax Parks Fund, Fund 302, and that's included in here. You'll note that we had a clerical error on the budget carryover item. It is not a change in the fact that the budget was balanced, but we just had omitted that revenue line. So we included that, but just to show you, that had a surplus in that fund. And so with that, we can shift some of the parks costs to that fund to be able to continue their operations. And so we worked with parks on some of those items. The main thing I would say is their 201 accounting and consulting temp staffing. A lot of that with the parks, we just couldn't fund because of the shortfall in cash. So that was shifted to the use tax line as well as some other dollars. So that's ultimately how we came to the recommended adjustments here. A couple other things I'll note with parks is we had Historic Sites Manager come before us in the budget hearing requesting for some very minimal dollars to be able to do the things they need to do. So we satisfied those requests, and then you had the golf course. We satisfied a few of his lines in 316, 334, 372 to his requests. We weren't able to get all of 333, but we gave him some more dollars there. And then the last, two last lines, we heard from the budget hearing that because of the cost of wood for resale, we can increase the revenue from those sales as well as increase the expenditure accordingly. So the net savings to the county, and we appreciate the cooperation with the Parks Department, is $700,000.
Thank you. Discussion?
Yeah.
Commissioner Carpenter, please proceed.
Thanks. So I'm going to vote in favor. Obviously, we've got the traditional county funding, and we've got it running parallel to the COP money that's coming in, and a lot of that money is being spent on parks. And a lot of it is yet unexpended, and adjustments can presumably still be made to how those dollars get spent, but a lot of it has already been spent. Millions, more than 10 million, I believe, on parks of the COP money has already been spent. So that gives me a little bit of confidence that we can make some of these reductions and that's okay. But it also, when it comes to things like, funding some of these golf course things, they're pretty small expenditures, and so I'm okay with it. That being said, I believe the golf course has already received $4.3 million is the testimony we received in COP money. That concerns me quite a bit, frankly. So I'm not 100% sure that they need even additional dollars, even though these dollars are fairly small. I'm of the opinion that going forward with the golf course, that there are decisions that need to be made as to exactly how many taxpayer dollars we're going to keep putting into the golf course, because I'm personally a skeptic. But that being said, I appreciate the budget team's work on this, and I'll be voting yes on 21. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Commissioner Carpenter?
Yes.
Commissioner Thompson?
Yes.
Thank you. The motion passes. With that, we move to a motion to approve budget adjustment item number 22. Mr. Administrator.
Commissioners, budget adjustment item number 22 pertains to an emergency communications increase in funding to pay MARC, Mid-America Resources Council. Budget team.
Yes, for number 22, with the Emergency Communications Fund and Fund 282, there has been cash needs. It's been short on cash, so what this ultimately does is move some of our general sales tax dollars to the fund so that it has enough cash, as well as make sure we are all caught up on all outstanding bills to pay Mid-America Regional Council for 911. So that's what this is for.
Thank you very much. Discussion? Commissioner Carpenter, please.
Thank you, Commissioner. So of course, we'll be supporting this. I do have a question in terms of long-term funding of 911. Is it the case that we as the county have the ability to pursue revenue through cell phone usage? I know traditionally a lot of the 911 funding has come through landlines, if I understand that correctly. And so do we have the option of doing, of adding cell phones into that? And if so, let me just ask that question.
Well, I think, if I follow Missouri legislation, I believe there is an option that if it goes to the ballot box, the voters can decide to add cell phones to that. I have to confirm that with council to
Right.
make sure we would do or look at that all correctly. But I believe
It would require a vote of the residents of the county.
I
is
think
my
that's
understanding as well.
accurate. I mean, currently it's only 2% of our of our landline is the fee. And I'll say that, I've always been interested in of how do we look at, are we getting everything we need from those providers to begin with, even just the landlines alone, let alone all cell phone costs out there.
Very good.
Thank you. I think Commissioner Carpenter correctly identifies the source of landlines as being a continually diminishing source of revenue. So obviously, that's an issue that must be dealt with. There's a comment. Please proceed. Identify yourself and please proceed.
Thank you. Sheriff Will Aiken, Clay County Sheriff's Office. It's been a while since I've been involved with the actual funding that's been coming in for 911 that was actually taken over by the previous county administration. But when the 911 bill that was passed, it was in response to the diminishing landlines that our county had. And at the time, I think we had 18,000 landlines, which goes back to a 1993 legislative effort that said we could collect taxes or fees from those to support 911. Well, since that time frame, and I think it's even down to around 13 or 14,000 landlines in Clay County, and it just continues to get lower and lower because people don't want landlines anymore. And from what I understand, Platte County, and don't quote me on this, but I think Platte County was the only county in our area that opted out of the 911 cell fee, tax, whatever, however you want to call it, so which allows Clay County to pull something in from that bill. I wasn't involved in that, but I do know that might be a potential. But additionally, 911, there's still 14 or 17 counties in the state of Missouri that do not have 911. And the problem is, with us is we need to continue to bolster 911 in our area, but we have to do it in collectively with other counties. And it ties in, but this is the reason why. If Victor is driving through X county that doesn't have 911 and he has an emergency, who's he going to call? Well, you've been paying off of your cell line that extra money. So that the cell fee goes to a pot that is accessible to all counties unless that county opts out. So 911 here in the KC metro area, we have one of the most robust 911 systems in the 48 PSAPs, public safety answering points, that we have in the KC metro area. And they are all connected. The only way we're able to have that kind of system is because of the funds that each of the counties put into a bucket for 911. 911 technology is not going to stabilize anytime soon because it's technology. And we know it's going to get better as the days go by, which has allowed us to actually have text to 911. And next gen 911 is going to allow us to send pictures over 911. The reason why I bring that up is because if we continue to rely on landlines, well, we're not going to get anywhere really fast. In fact, we're going to be taking steps backward. But to also bring to your attention that we really have to pay attention to this as a county, especially as a region, so that way we can continue to have the most impressive 911 system almost in the entire state of Missouri. So just wanted to put that out there for historical, as much as I could provide clarification.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Any further comments?
Well, I just want to say thank you to our sheriff for the information. Sincerely appreciate it. And bottom line for me ultimately is if we as the commission, if the law enforcement community feels that we as the commission can do something to help in that regard, I would be very interested to hear those thoughts. So thank you.
Further discussion? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Commissioner Carpenter,
Yes.
Commissioner Thompson.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes. This brings us to motion to approve budget adjustment item number 23. Mr. Administrator.
Commissioners, budget adjustment item number 23 pertains to moving the Board of Equalization from the assessment fund to the general fund. Budget team?
Yes, this is a request in the assessment fund, the assessor's office. We've had a longstanding request. Because the commission appoints the Board of Equalization members, the idea is to move those costs to the general fund and under the commission. Currently, the general fund supplements the assessment fund for those costs, so this would just bring it home to the general fund. So that's all this is.
Thank you. Discussion? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Commissioner Carpenter?
Yes.
Commissioner Thompson?
Yes,
Thank you. Motion passes. Motion to approve budget adjustment item number 24. Mr. Administrator?
Commissioners, budget adjustment item number 24 pertains to assessor cleanup and requested changes. Budget team?
Yes, for number 24, also an assessor item, we had a request from the budget hearing. We heard of a need for a programmer position as well as more postage dollars because of assessment changes. And so that meets it. We were able to fund it through, just with the health of the fund itself, it's in a fairly good position, so we funded it with the fund.
Discussion?
yes,
Commissioner Thompson?
I would actually have an amendment to this. After hearing some very good argument from our assessor and knowing the needs of our county, I think it would be appropriate for this programmer position to be removed from this line item and put back into our IT, because I think there's a lot of needs within our county where we could actually utilize a programmer, and then would benefit everybody.
So you're, go ahead and restate, you're wanting to propose an amendment to the motion. Go ahead and restate that, and if the clerk could make sure that if you make sure that you have it as you feel comfortable, it's correct.
amendment.
So please proceed with your motion to amend.
I would make the motion to amend the number 24 to have the programmer position removed from this line item under the assessor's cleanup changes and put under the IT budget.
Okay. Motion has been made to amend budget adjustment item number 24 to move this particular line item to the IT budget line. Do you feel comfortable with the, good, very good for the records. Discussion. Go ahead and expand on that if you would like.
No, I think this is an important role that we seem to be struggling with within the county, and I think there's a lot of room where the whole county can utilize a person that would be for programming. And I think our assessor has really brought that to light. Not only do they need this, but our collector could utilize this. The clerk's office has some programming needs that it would be great for them to be able to utilize. As we discussed for parks, I think it's endless. So it just seems like it would make sense to move that over to our ID department.
Please, please go with your comments. at the
Kathy
podium.
Reinhardt, Clay County Assessor.
Thank you.
One is not going to be enough, people. I mean, I can keep a programmer just in my department, working on the scanning, working on pulling data and dropping it into the system, automating my system. I mean, I can use a programmer 24/7 for an entire year just to get caught up with what I need to get caught up with. I think you need a programmer also. And if my programmer's done with whatever I need to have done, you can have them to help you do what you need to have done. I mean, it's one thing to write, 2 lines of script to pull data out of a system. It's something else to write a script that takes this information from this system and drops it into this system. Those people, it takes weeks and weeks and weeks to do that. And when you've got them pulled off to run a little script over here and then they have to get back to this, I need a programmer. I think you need a programmer. So instead of taking it from me, I would advise that you add it and have 2. That's just my thought. And since I can afford one, and it's not going to cost the general revenue fund anything, I would appreciate it if you'd at least leave mine alone and get your own. There you go. Just saying.
Do you, I was going to go budget team. Do you have anything to add before, and I'll be coming back to you, Commissioner Thompson, but I was going to go to budget team next and get any impact and reflection from them. Budget team, do you have any thoughts to express on that particular issue?
It's Steve Sirks. I'd just like to comment that, just for clarification, that there are 2 existing vacancies in the IT department as we speak now, one of which could potentially be used for a programming position subject to the county administrator and the IT director's discretion. Also, that the fact that the IT programmer, the programmer position that the assessor had asked for was currently in her budget and funded by her budget. So
Thank you. Mr. Administrator, do you have any thoughts or comments that you'd like to make on this amendment?
I don't have any specifics. We'll talk to both departments and take their lead and certainly investigate what's the appropriate thing to do on that. I think the position's been made very eloquently that these positions are needed, so we'll certainly endeavor to find a place to put these folks and do it in a way that doesn't impact any budget negatively.
Further discussion, I was going to go to Commissioner Carpenter, but since it's your motion, Commissioner Thompson, I'll go to you and then check with Commissioner Carpenter and then go to you for close.
No, thank you, Commissioner. It seems like then if we have it in the budget for us to hire our own, I thought I was going to be helping by moving that over to the commission side, but if that is not helpful, I am happy to withdraw my motion on that. If you have that in your budget item and then that's fine. I will withdraw my motion on that.
Very well. Motion to amend budget adjustment item number 24 has been withdrawn. So that brings us back to the initial motion for the approval of budget adjustment item number 24. Further discussion? Anything? Seeing no further discussion, please call the roll.
Commissioner Carpenter?
Yes.
Commissioner Thompson?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes. That brings us to a motion to approve budget adjustment item number 25. Mr. Administrator, I'm sorry.
Commissioners, budget adjustment item number 25 pertains to Collector's Office cleanup. Budget team?
Yes, for number 25, in working with the collector's office and after their budget hearing, we have an existing agreement where the collector collects property taxes for the cities, and it was an agreement where we get at 1% fee. A quarter of that goes to the tax maintenance fund, Fund 943, and another quarter goes to Fund 305, tax software. And so that cash is moving, but is not appropriately budgeted since the agreements have been enacted. So what this does is budget the revenues and expenditures for those agreements. In addition, we also were able to recommend increasing their armored car budget line because it was not fully budgeted, as well as some delinquent costs that Collector McAvoy mentioned. And we were able to do that with some revenues that previously had been in the TMF that we can redirect to fund that. So that's what the adjustments recommended here are for.
Thank you very much. By the way, something that just to keep in mind as we're having our discussions, it's easy to fall into acronyms, so sometimes it's helpful rather than TMF to identify it as a tax maintenance fund. Those kinds of things, I think it'd be more helpful for our those listening who are maybe not quite as up to speed on some of the jargon that we tend to use. Thank you very much. Discussion on this item.
Does that increase your budget?
It does increase so the 100,505 line is the one that you're referring to. Now 100,508, the expenditure line is not, that is one that is controlled by the commission. But you're right, the 505 line is by statute a permanent matter.
Please go ahead and speak into the mic and identify yourself.
So that means you can never reduce your budget from whatever you're agreeing to today?
As far as I understand the current law, I'd have to talk to council about what all is existing, but yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Further discussion? If there, I see none, please call the roll.
Commissioner Carpenter?
Yes.
Commissioner Thompson?
Yes.
Thank you. The motion passes. Motion to approve budget adjustment item number 26. Mr. Administrator.
Commissioners, budget adjustment item number 26 pertains to general use tax capital fund adjustments. Budget team?
Yes, number 26 is there are three use tax funds, and Fund 300 is the general use tax capital line. This one had a positive carryover surplus, so we were able to reallocate some of those dollars. We did make some recommended adjustments to IT and facilities, the reason being, again, based on past expenditures of unused budget and budget growth, right-sized those, but then we increased both the highway capital line to help pay for some leases. We'll get to highway later on. They had low carryover in both the Highway Fund 220 and the Use Tax Highway Fund 301. So this is a way to offset that. And we also gave over $500,000 to the sheriff's office to use for capital items such as vehicles, other capital needs. I will note we had an omission here as well on the carryover. Again, budget is still balanced. We just did not mention on yesterday's draft that revenue line. So just making everyone aware.
Thank you very much. Discussion? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Commissioner Carpenter?
Yes.
Commissioner Thompson?
Yes.
Motion passes. That brings us to motion to approve budget adjustment item number 27. Mr. Administrator?
Commissioners, budget adjustment item number 27 pertains to the prosecuting attorney's salary budget. Budget team?
Yes, number 27, the prosecutor's salary is tied to judges, and it runs on a state fiscal year. And as a result, we've noticed prior budgets have not adequately budgeted the full salary because of that mid-year adjustment. It takes what is the current salary at January 1st. So we added sequestration to be able to adequately budget that. And as well as we heard from the prosecutor in a budget meeting, they had an assistant prosecutor retire, and they wanted to use that full salary that they had to hire a new person, as well as with the savings bring up some pays to keep them competitive. But the proposed budget was $3,000 less than that former assistant prosecutor's full salary. So we added $3,000 so that they can accomplish those goals.
Thank you very much. Discussion? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Commissioner Carpenter?
Yes.
Commissioner Thompson?
I'm going to recuse myself.
I vote yes. I'm sorry, you need to call my name, don't you? Go ahead. Very good. That brings, okay, motion passes. Motion to approve budget adjustment item number 28. Mr. Administrator?
Commissioners, budget adjustment item number 28 pertains to general fund report adjustment and 401 cash carryover true-up. Budget team?
Yes, number 28 deals with the airport. The first item you'll note there in the general fund, there was an expenditure budgeted for land improvements grant. However, after discussions with the airport manager, we learned that revenue is not forthcoming, and in fact, the revenue is not in the proposed budget. So therefore, without that, we shouldn't budget the expenditure side. We received that grant money at the end of 2020. And so that was the reason for that reduction there. Now, in the airport fund itself, Fund 401, we worked with the airport manager, and we very much appreciate the cooperation. They did have a cash carryover shortfall slightly of $276,000, but we worked with them to identify where those adjustments could happen and where they need dollars. And so we made some increases to what is needed, as you'll note, but then we made reductions to that land improvement lines in order to balance their budget. So ultimate savings to the county of $735,000.
Thank you. Discussion? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Commissioner Carpenter?
Yes.
Commissioner Thompson?
Yes.
That brings us, that motion passes. Motion to approve budget adjustment item number 29. Mr. Administrator.
Commissioners, budget adjustment item number 29 pertains to the county clerk position changes. Budget team?
Yes, number 29 is dealing with the county clerk's office. What we have here is to bring up the chief deputy on comparison with the rest of the county, to move a part-time position to full-time, and then to add 2 full-time positions. Now, as we have discussed previously, we found budget for those positions at a savings to the county from other administrative departments. So that is how those items were funded. We also gave some training expenses because of the technology that office utilizes. So really, instead of a higher cost, it was only a $22,000 ask.
Thank you. Discussion? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Commissioner Carpenter?
Yes.
Commissioner Thompson?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes. Motion to approve a budget adjustment item number 30. Mr. Administrator.
Commissioners, budget adjustment item number 30 pertains to reclassification of the highway legal settlement and the sales tax portion thereof. Budget team?
Yes, number 30 is a transparency item, essentially. It deals with the road district settlement payments that we make from those legal settlements. A portion of that is with property taxes and truing up to 14-cent levy versus our current 0.766 levy. And so that is the larger amount there, the 2.4 million. And then we separated out in 229 the sales tax component of those settlements agreements, which are currently 50% of our sales tax revenue between 7 and 9 million, less TIF. And so that's what that is for.
Thank you. Discussion? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Commissioner Carpenter?
Yes.
Commissioner Thompson?
Yes?
Motion passes. Motion to approve budget adjustment item number 31, Mr. Administrator.
Commissioners, budget adjustment item number 31 pertains to a public administrator request. Budget team?
Number 31, Public Administrator's General Office Supply budget was cut in half last year. No one's really sure why, so this is to restore that.
Thank you. Discussion? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Commissioner Carpenter?
Yes.
Commissioner Thompson?
Yes?
Motion passes. Motion to approve budget adjustment item number 32, Mr. Administrator.
Commissioners, budget adjustment item number 32 pertains to a cash carryover true-up. Budget team?
Yes, number 32 is an accounting fix, essentially. What we have is carryover differences from what the proposed budget was. And in these non-significant funds, you really only have one expenditure line, so you don't have options to, pick and choose. It's essentially you true up the revenues and expenditures. So that's what this is for our non-significant funds.
Thank you. Discussion? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Commissioner Carpenter?
Yes.
Commissioner Thompson?
Yes?
Motion passes. Motion to approve budget adjustment item number, let me see,
33.
yes, 33. Yeah, it didn't quite carry over on the page break, so I had to make sure I didn't want to make another error. Budget adjustment item number 33, Mr. Administrator.
Commissioners, budget adjustment item number 33 pertains to planning and zoning changes. Budget team?
Number 33, we're very appreciative of the planning and zoning manager came forth in the budget hearing and offered to the county $60,000 in savings from these lines so listed. So that's what this is.
Thank you. Discussion?
Yeah, if I could.
Yes, Commissioner Carpenter, please proceed.
Thank you. So I do recall that he also had a couple of minor requests and increases. Did we make sure to include all of those in here?
I apologize.
We've got a little bit, for motor fuels and that sort of thing listed as increases. I'm trying to recall specifically. We did cover those though, but.
Yeah, I apologize, Commissioner. Yeah, that we did meet those requests with reallocating. So yes, for wearing apparel up to 600, because there seem to be some random proposed cuts, and so and then motor fuels to 4,000 and education and training supplies to 1,000.
Very good. Yeah, no, I just because I too am grateful for his proactive willingness to find cost savings, and so I want to make sure that we don't leave off any of the additional requests that he had, and obviously it's a significant net savings from planning and zoning's overall budget, and I'm grateful for that. So thank you.
Yes,
Kathy
please
Reinhardt,
proceed.
Clay County Assessor. Mr. Nolte, could you tell me what that line item marked planning and sustainable, what is that? Is that the flyover?
There we go. Okay.
That's a portion
pull that out.
I don't know what that is. That's a portion that you all pay so we can get the flyover maps from Mark. So
I'm not sure if that's for the map.
I don't know what that is. That's all I'm asking. What is it? Because the Planning and Zoning Department helps pay for some of that. And I don't want that cut out and then somebody go, oh, well, you owe 60,000, Ms. Reinhardt, and I was only planning on paying 40.
I'm not entirely sure. I'm not on that MARC committee,
Okay.
so it's
Do you know,
sustainable
Mr.
places. I
Hurlbert?
don't know if there's a,
Well, I had some notes in here that he made a comment, and budget team, feel free to jump in, that it wasn't used since 2013, and so
Okay,
that's.
never mind.
All right, that's.
Thank you. I just wanted to make sure we had flyover money, that's all.
thank you very much. By the way, it might be a good part to make this comment that we will soon be looking at reassigning a lot of the committee assignments that the commissioners occupy on Mark and some of the other boards. So working through the county administrator, we will be trying to fill some of those positions which were filled by previous commissioners. So that'll be something that we want to address in the near future. Did you have further comments?
Oh, since you brought it up, and you did bring it up,
Yes?
whoever's on the TIF committee for Kansas City, whatever they're doing, you need to run, not mosey. Run to the assessment department and tell us what's happening, because by the time we get the information, it's already cut and dry and done, and we really do, it's better if we have a little heads up. I shouldn't have to be scouring the newspaper to find out what's going on.
Can we get together
Whoever's
after-
on the TIF committee,
Can we get together after the meeting and go over some of those issues?
Sure.
Would that be possible?
sure.
I don't think we're going to be running too late, so we should have a reasonable amount of time at the end of the day. Thank you very much. Further comments? Please call the roll.
Commissioner Carpenter?
Yes.
Commissioner Thompson?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes. That brings us to motion to approve budget adjustment item number 34. Mr. Administrator.
Commissioners, budget adjustment item number 34 pertains to Highway Department true-up. Budget team.
Yes, number 34 was frankly a difficult situation, as previously mentioned, with the highway departments, both the Highway Fund 220 Road and Bridge Fund and the Use Tax Highway Fund, Fund 301, both had carryover shortfalls, as you'll note, near 700,000 in Road and Bridge Fund, and then 942,000 in the Use Tax Fund. So we were able to identify in the Road and Bridge Highway Fund 220, a lot of those costs in the proposed budget had been shifted to 301 already, so there wasn't really much else to reduce to balance that budget. We did notice in the, as I've mentioned before, the road district payments, we are confident that there is enough in that budget, and this was extra unneeded budget, and so that was able to balance that fund. With Fund 301, we did a number of things here. We had to reduce one area, and that was the 820-340, road and sidewalk construction materials, but we worked directly with Highway Director Terry Griffin, and we were able to make Fund 301 reflect more of the Fund 220 as far as where those budgeted lines had been shifted, because they were shifted to just one line. So we made that more transparent per request and balanced that budget as well. So that's what 34.
Thank you. Discussion? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Commissioner Carpenter?
Yes.
Commissioner Thompson?
Yes.
Motion passes. That brings us to motion to approve budget adjustment item number 35. Mr. Administrator.
Commissioners, budget adjustment item number 35 pertains to the Office of the Medical Examiner. Budget team.
Yes, this was our last item, and we got a very recent request from purchasing, which we appreciate very much, noticing that the proposed budget for our medical examiner contract was short by $13,200. So rather than trying to deal with this later, we decided to go ahead and fix it now. So that is what this last item is for.
Thank you. Discussion? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Commissioner Carpenter?
Yes.
Commissioner Thompson?
Yes.
Thank you. And as was just noted, that brings us to the end of our budget adjustment decision items. What I'm going to do is I'm going to just mention, obviously, we've got discussion items. We did go through this rather quickly, and in fact, it was my intention to stop halfway through for a small break, but it went so quickly that I didn't see it as necessary. So we will dispose of discussion items, and we will move to comments on agenda items, and that would include the budget, in case it went by so quickly that any individuals who wanted to comment did not have the opportunity. And then after that, we will move to comments on non-agenda items. That being the case, there are no items under discussion items for us to take up today. That brings us to comment on agenda items. The only agenda item was, of course, the 2021 proposed budget. Are there any comments from members of the public on the 2021 proposed budget? Seeing none. Are there any commissioner comments on the 2021 proposed budget?
Yes, Commissioner, thank you. I really want to give a big thank you to our budget team and our very special gentleman here who we drug out of retirement to help us dig through this, Mr. Steve Sirks. He's done a terrific job. And I want to thank all the office holders and department heads for taking the time and being patient with us as we are digging ourselves out of this horrible, horrible hole that we've been in for the past about 6 years, I'd say, at least. So we're really appreciative of your patience and understanding as we move forward. And if you ever need anything, just let us know, and we will, of course, try to help any way we can. But thank you.
Commissioner Carpenter, do you have anything?
Sure, I would wholeheartedly second Commissioner Thompson's remarks, all of them. And, I think this is, without question, a big step in the right direction for the county. I think one of the most important things, obviously, that the commission does is this budget work, and proud of the progress that we've made here today, and look forward to making even more going forward.
Thank you very much. I'll just make a short comment that I certainly agree with the comments that our budget team and new administrator have worked very hard, and the different departments and elected officials have, of course, participated, and it's been a very cooperative, a very interactive kind of experience, which we all very, very much appreciate. One of the things that is most gratifying, at least from my point of view, is our ability to address the funding issues that have been visited upon the Sheriff's Department over the past number of years. While we didn't get into this position with the Sheriff's funding in 1 year, clearly you don't resolve these problems in 1 year. So we look forward very much with working with all of the departments and making sure that we bring them up to the level they need to be at to adequately be funded to fulfill the services that they render to our citizens. Just for sort of procedural purposes, what we have done is we have voted in, obviously, a number of budget adjustments. The procedure from here, and please correct me if I'm wrong, either Mr. Administrator or if the budget team, but the budget team will now take these decision items that have been made, they will incorporate them into a final budget document. We will take that budget document up next week, possibly Thursday, but I don't want to lock us down quite yet until we make sure that we've got the process where we need it. We are required by state statute to have this budget passed prior to the end of the month. We are certainly online to do that with a day or two to spare, which we certainly appreciate, and is due in no small part to the hard work of the budget team. So the expectation is once these changes are incorporated, we will once again in a future, hopefully, likely next week, commission meeting, we will once again present the budget as voted on today for another vote and for any public discussion on that at that time. So with that, we will move. Are there any office holder comments on the 2021 proposed budget, which we have just discussed? Sheriff Aiken, I believe you're approaching the dais.
Sheriff Will Aiken, Clay County Sheriff's Office. Again, thank you for the opportunity to stand up here and address everyone. First, I just want to commend the budget team. I cannot imagine the conversations that you had to have with office holders and department heads and the context of those conversations in order to budget this balance, or budget this budget, to balance this budget. It's kind of hard to talk with this mask sometimes. I feel like I'm getting hypoxic, but that's all right. We'll get through this. But I commend you. And if we had a large audience today, I would ask for an applause, because this is no small feat. But I do want to point to the commissioners. Since 1993, the Sheriff's Office has not been addressed in this manner. And you are responsible for bringing the Sheriff's Office up to where we need to be. So I want to thank you for everything that you've done as far as partnership. And last but not least, I want to thank the other office holders and department heads for working with the budget team to bring the balance, or the budget right for the Sheriff's Office. This didn't happen in 1 year. This happened over several years. And I really wish retired Sheriff Paul Vescova was here to see this. And he may very well be watching today, but this is something that I think really was owed to him, but I get to relish in it. But nonetheless, I just want to say openly and in public comment, office holder comment, thank you very much for the budget team. And commissioners, thank you for everything.
Thank you very much. Are there any other office holders who would care to comment at this time on the 2021 proposed budget? Seeing none, would any agencies care to comment on the 2021 proposed budget? Before we leave that, now I'll ask one more time, are there any public comments on the 2021 proposed budget? Seeing none, before we leave comments on agenda items, there were two people that I neglected to mention my comments, and I think it bears certainly comment on my part, and that is I appreciate the fact that we have two new commissioners who bring fresh eyes to the issues that we have to grapple with. Their ability to take this challenge and to roll up their sleeves and get deep into the process is very much appreciated. Commissioner Thompson obviously is not a stranger to county government, but this is certainly a challenge that she has taken on and has done a great job on making those contributions that we need to have. Commissioner Carpenter certainly is new to county government, although no stranger to government, having served in the state legislature, but I think that you can see by the quality of his questions the involvement that he has brought to it. And once again, with a very steep learning curve to climb, I think that both of the associate commissioners who have come on have certainly indicated that not only they have the ability and the willingness and the fortitude to work on these issues, but they also demonstrate the new directions this county is now taking, that we are turning away from some of the old ways that have been, I'll just say, less than productive. And I am extremely happy to be serving with these two individuals, and I thank them very much for their hard work on the budget process. With that, we will move on to comments on non-agenda items, which essentially means everything except the 2021 proposed budget. Are there any public comments on non-agenda items?
I just wanted to tell you, this
Oh,
is
please,
Kathy
Jenna.
Reinhardt, the
Thank
Clay
you.
County Assessor. The IT department came over last week in the IGIS department and moved a computer for us. And this is the first time in 5 years that the computer was moved, all the programs were moved. It was amazing. They didn't have to come back 25, 30 times. That's an exaggeration. They didn't have to come back 4 or 5 times to get it done. So I don't know what's going on with the IT department. I don't know who those people are. They had a kid at the door earlier today, and I'm like, may I help you? And he kind of looked at me because it looked like he was 12. And he goes, oh, I work here. And I'm like, oh, okay, IT guy, brand new. Did a wonderful job. So thank you.
I think that's a very good point to bring up, and that is that the staff that we have are doing a great job, and it goes from all the way from our new administrator to the person who is doing every other job that takes place for the business of this county. So certainly we appreciate your comment. I'm sure particularly the IT department appreciates your comments on their good work. Are there any further comments from the public on non-agenda items? Seeing none. Are there any comments from commissioners on non-agenda items? Seeing none. Comments from any other office holders on non-agenda items? Seeing none. Comments from agencies on non-agenda items? Seeing none. And I will go back and just do another call for any public comments on non-agenda items. Seeing none. That brings us to approval of the minutes. There are no minutes to be approved on this particular agenda. Written reports to the commission, are there any? No written reports to be submitted to the county commission. There are no executive sessions listed for this day. That brings us to recess and adjournment. We are adjourned. Thank you very much. Thank you for being in. Thank you for jumping in there on so many things. Really great.
Did a bang up job, got far away from home.